So I'll let you guys know this is Stefan Gonick doing a Ask Me Anything about attracting your soulmate. Sorry, I'm a little flustered because we're having so much trouble getting this thing started, and now we're doing it a little bit different way. But my name is Stefan Gonick from singletosoulmate.me, and I have a bunch of questions that people emailed to me in advance of this YouTube Live, and I'm also going to be answering questions for the people who are on the call live with me now. So here are a whole bunch of different questions, and I'm going to go ahead and start with these. Okay, so the first question I have says, Stefan, could you help me with not feeling good enough to meet my soulmate? So yes, this is a very important question. It's a very common one. A lot of people, if you ask them to sort of imagine all the things they're looking for in a partner, and then imagine that somebody with all those traits are standing right in front of them, the first reaction, if they then check how they feel inside, with the prospect of encountering somebody that has everything they're looking for in a partner, very commonly the first reaction is something along these lines, that I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy of somebody that great, or they might say it as in, well, that person's amazing, but what would he or she see in me? Things like that. It's a very, very common situation to not feel good enough for your partner. We have some cats joining us. There's one on the shelf behind me. And there's another one meowing down next to me. So anyway, like I said, this is a very common, here's one of the cats. This is a very common experience that we have. And so where does this come from and what can we do about it is the big question. So where it comes from, well, actually, let's start with what would it take to not feel that way? Because really the great majority of us feel that way. And if you think about it, this is a really sad and tragic way to feel that, if I was to encounter my soulmate, I wouldn't feel good enough for this person, right? And if we don't feel good enough for somebody, then they're going to feel out of our league and we're going to just kind of collapse. We're going to kind of shrink and go away. That's going to make it really hard to be with our soulmate, even if you encounter that person. We tend to think of meeting our soulmate as this magical thing where we meet our soulmate and we look each other in the eyes and fireworks goes off and then everything is like, wow, it's fantastic and beautiful and effortless and things like that. But if you have this feeling of I'm not good enough for my soulmate, then that can really sabotage things right from the start. So what would make it so that we did not feel that way is if we grew up in an environment where we felt very loved by both parents, very consistently, without much bad stuff happening, then we would feel worthy of our parents' love and attention, and we would feel generally very, good enough, right? We would feel good about ourselves. We would have good self-esteem. But lots of times we grow up in situations where we either don't get that much consistent love from our parents, right? Or at worst might be in an abusive environment. So let's kind of look at the different situations. The worst one would be growing up in a really abusive environment. Anybody who grows up in an abusive environment, the impact is going to have is we tend to feel pretty badly about ourselves, right? If we get abused, all kids, all young children take everything that happens to them personally and as meaning something about them, right? Little kids don't have enough understanding of the world to understand that actually the problem is with the parents, not with ourselves. All kids take things personally and they think it must be something to do with me. So anybody who grows up in an abusive environment is going to end up feeling really bad about themselves. The next step up is with parents who just aren't very loving. Again, if we feel well loved, then we conclude that, I must be lovable. I must be worthy of my parents' love and attention. If we have emotionally distant parents, it's not that they're bad in some way. They're not treating us badly per se, right? They're not hurting us and doing bad things to us, but just the lack of loving energy is enough to, again, feel like I must not be very lovable, right? If I don't get much love and attention from my parents, then they believe that I must not be worthy of love and attention from my parents. The next step up is the mixed bag situation. And this is where we have parents who part of the time we're loving, but part of the time they do negative behaviors towards us. So an example of that would be a parent who gets angry a lot. So when we're being yelled at very angrily, strong anger at a child feels very rejecting of the child. If I'm being yelled at, it's scary, it's intimidating, but I feel very rejected, right? There's a very powerful message of you are not okay with me when a parent is yelling at you, right? If I'm being yelled at, I feel like I'm not okay with that parent. So if that happens fairly often, then I'm going to not feel all that okay. If it happens some of the time, then there's going to be parts of my life where I don't feel okay. And relationally, that may be the case. That, when we meet somebody who seems really wonderful, the stakes feel very high. And that's where it's going to bring out all of our insecurities the most. So if we get yelled at a lot or a fair amount, that's going to make us doubt ourselves. Another thing that'll make us doubt ourselves is if a parent tends to be judgmental and critical towards us periodically, right? Because when a parent is being judgmental and critical, there's a very clear message that in this judgment and criticism that a parent is giving to a child, the clear message is this part of you, the part of you that I'm currently judging and criticizing is not okay, right? In fact, I'm being very explicit about it. I'm criticizing that part of you. So I was saying this part of you is not okay. So if I feel like this part of me is not okay, and then I get criticized later, and okay, now this part of me is not okay, and then this part of me is not okay, this part of me is not okay. After a while, I start feeling not so okay in general. So these are the kinds of experiences that lead us to not feel confident about ourselves, to feel like maybe I'm not that worthy of big love, right? I'm not that worthy of being with somebody really good. Now, interestingly, if I meet somebody who's sort of medium, right, they're not like really, really good, so the stakes don't feel that high, so I'm not as worried about whether or not they're going to like me, then I'm going to be more comfortable and calm and very likely be able to be with that person. The only problem is then I'm going to feel like I'm settling, right? This isn't really the kind of person I want to be with. I just feel more relaxed and comfortable with this person because it's not challenging me at all. So like I said, with the soulmate is where we get triggered the most because, like I said, the stakes feel really high. So what can we do about this? There's two kinds of things that you can do. One is to heal the experiences that caused us to not feel good about ourselves. So if we got yelled at in anger a lot, we would want to do some healing on the experiences of being yelled at. Ideally, you would use EFT, but that's not the only way to do it. It's just, in my experience, the fastest way to do it. But you would want to heal some representative memories of being angrily yelled at a young age, right? Our formative years are 0 to 7. So you'd try and look for memories that are within that age range and do your healing on those. Same with being judged and criticized, same with having emotionally distant parents. So any of those kinds of things. The other thing we can do is to do processes that help us directly build up our self-love and our self-appreciation. Because, the end result from our childhood of not feeling sufficiently well-loved and appreciated is that we don't feel it ourselves. But there are things we can do to try and build that up. Now, that tends to go better if we're also doing the healing, right? Because we have a lot of unhealed wounds from childhood that really hurt our self-esteem and our healthy self-love. Then the other process of trying to build ourselves up don't work as easily. There tends to be a lot of internal resistance to letting those good processes in. So the ideal best thing you can do is to do both. Do healing of the experiences that negatively impacted our self-esteem and feelings of self-worth, and then following that, or in parallel to that, do processes to help yourself feel better. Now, this call was not meant to be a self-promotional call. I just wanted to help everybody, but it does turn out that I have 2 products that directly handle both those things. I have something called the Single to Soulmate Breakthrough Program that is designed to help identify and heal those childhood experiences that made us feel not so good about ourselves, And then I also have this product called Self-Love to Soulmate, which are these positive exercises to help us increase our self-love. So it takes care of it on both sides. So anyway, that's my my best answer to handling this common situation that the majority of us have. I definitely had that myself. I remember when I first got in touch with all this for myself, when I tried to imagine, the kind of woman I really wanted to be with, I was immediately hit with this really powerful belief of any woman that I was super interested in couldn't possibly be interested in me. And so you can see how self-defeating that was. And I had to work through that before I could even talk to a woman that I found really exciting. So that was something I had to address first, especially as the guy, since I'm the one who more likely had to initiate things. And when I first started trying to do that, before I'd fully worked it through, I got to the point where I finally had the courage to talk to a woman that I found really exciting. But since I still had that belief that I wasn't, worthy, that was just my way of putting it, I would get all tongue-tied and come across as insecure and all these negative things. And so, it didn't work at all. So to really be with your soulmate, to really be with somebody great, where you don't feel like you're settling. Instead, you feel really lucky and excited and fortunate and all these things. You definitely need to heal that part of you that feels like you're not good enough. Otherwise, it's really hard to get there. All right. So let's see. I don't see any live chat questions, so I'm going to go ahead and answer the next one that I have in advance. So it says, from what I could acknowledge, I suffer from fear of intimacy as well as a fear of abandonment. What do I do? All right. So there are two universal fears that where we all feel at least one of the two. Sometimes we feel both of them. And that's the fear of abandonment and the fear of engulfment. Okay, so the fear of abandonment is this fear that I will be abandoned or rejected. Right? Abandonment can happen either way. Either the other person leaves or the other person rejects us and sends us away. But either way, there's a separation and abandonment. So that's a super common fear. The fear of engulfment is the opposite. There's this fear that the person is going to get too close, right? They'll be smothering, overly controlling, invasive, things like that. And like I said, we all have one or the other of these, and sometimes we have both. So this person has the fear of abandonment and also fear of intimacy. Now, what a fear of intimacy means is that there was experiences that happened to the person that makes being close scary, right? There are certain painful things that happened. So some of the examples I gave, right? If you grew up with a really angry parent who yelled and screamed at you, that can develop a fear of intimacy because you can become afraid that if I get close, because, in my closest original relationship with my parents, I got yelled and screamed at a lot. So from a very young age, so that has sort of caused this fear in me that if I get close to somebody, they're going to yell and scream at me. Or if I get judged and criticized, like I said in the earlier example, same thing. I'm afraid I'll get judged and criticized, which is a very painful experience. So there can be any number of different kinds of painful things that can happen to us that creates this kind of gun-shy feeling of being afraid to experience it again. Now, not all of those have to be from childhood. You can have adult experiences that can do that too. Like if your first major relationship, in your first major relationship, you got cheated on, then you can get really gun-shy about getting cheated on again because it was so devastating when it happened. So there can be fears of intimacy. Another kind of fear is, growing up in a very controlling environment where you felt very dominated and controlled and you felt like you had no ability to stand up for yourself and say no or have boundaries. That can create a fear of intimacy, fear of being lost within the relationship, losing oneself. There's a lot of fears that can come up around intimacy that, again, mostly go back to the things that we experienced in childhood. And the same goes with fear of abandonment. We get a fear of abandonment because in childhood, there's a lot of experiences we had where we felt abandoned. If we have distant parents, we'll get a fear of abandonment. If we had a parent who died when we were still a child, that will create a fear of abandonment. If we had, well, a lot of the examples I gave, interestingly, moving frequently can create a fear of abandonment because, for instance, let's say you're 5 years old in kindergarten, and when we're really little, we tend to get really, really close friendships. We are almost kind of like merged as one. You're like these two little inseparable kids. And then 2 years later, you move and you lose that friendship, even though you were the one to move away. That can still create this fear of abandonment because there's this loss of this really close friendship. So lots of things can create a fear of abandonment. And again, the thing that's going to help with this is to go back to childhood and heal those experiences where you felt abandoned, right? Same with the fear of engulfment. The reason why somebody can develop a fear of engulfment, for instance, that was mine. I had of the two universal fears, I had that one. That comes from experiences of feeling engulfed as a child, right? Like my mom got really invasive of me emotionally at times, actually coming from a place of very positive intentions on her part, but it still felt very invasive to me. And so I developed this fear of engulfment, whereas like it's hard to let somebody get too close because I was afraid of getting invaded, like I experienced with my mother. So we need to heal these formative experiences in order to let go of that fear, to release that fear. Because a fear of abandonment makes us very insecure, needy, and clingy, which can tend to push your partner away and create the very abandonment that you're afraid of. And the fear of engulfment means it's hard to let somebody close, which means you're going to kind of hold people at a distance, which is one of the things I did. And eventually they get pretty frustrated and give up and they go away, right? So it tends to cause problems. Or what it can do, if somebody with a fear of engulfment like mine, if I'm holding my girlfriend at a distance and she has a fear of abandonment, then that's going to make her even more clingy and try and get closer to me. And then that's going to make me more uncomfortable. I'm going to push her away again. And it creates this sort of vicious cycle where there's a name for this actually. It's called the pattern of the distancer pursuer pattern. Distancer, so I was the distancer, keeping my girlfriend at distance, and then she would pursue me more and more until finally she'd give up and start to go away. And then I go, whoa, where are you going? Don't leave, don't give up. I want to be with you, So it's a very painful pattern on both sides. It was not a healthy thing in my earlier relationships for me to do that. It's not healthy to come from a place of fear of abandonment either. So in order to not have this affect our relationships in negative ways, ideally we want to heal this stuff, which goes back to addressing childhood experiences. All right, let's see. All right, so next question. I have been using some dating sites for a while now, and I haven't been successful so far. I'm always attracting the wrong men. I met in person only 2 men out of 14. Unfortunately, there's no spark with either of them. I'm always inclined to the jerks, which at some point soon they show their true colors. Nobody has good intentions with me, even if they say the opposite and make me believe that. I am very frustrated at this point. So why am I always attracted to the wrong men? What do I do? I just want to find a genuine person like me. Please help. So there are lots of different potential blocks we can have to finding our soulmate. In my experience, there are 3 universal ones. There are more than just those 3. Like I said, there's many potential ones, but these 3 pretty much apply to everyone. And what this question is about is actually the first of those 3 blocks. And that is what people, if they kind of look at their relationship history, a lot of people will start to recognize, as I did originally from my own relationship history, that we seem to have a pattern of being attracted to or attracting certain kinds of partners where we keep repeating the same painful experiences over and over again. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is the following, and Let's take a quick sip of water here. When we're growing up, we form a subconscious image of our adult romantic partners. I'm talking about like when we're really little, 4 or 5 years old. We subconsciously form an image of the kind of person we're ultimately going to be attracted to as an adult based on the strongest traits of our parents. Now, that includes both positive traits and negative traits. Both. Now, positive traits, that's not a problem, right? So let's say a girl has a father who is smart, funny, and playful, and emotionally unavailable. We have 3 positive traits and 1 negative trait. What's going to happen for that girl is that when she grows up to be an adult, is she's going to be attracted to men who are intelligent, funny, playful, so far no problem, and emotionally unavailable. Big problem. Okay. Now, there's a deep reason why we're drawn to people with the negative traits as well as the positive ones. And basically, it comes from the wound of that negative trait creates this perpetual longing to win that parent's love when they're treating us painfully, emotionally unavailable, or yelling, or any of these negative traits I've been talking about all along, actually. Our inner child desperately wants to be loved all the time by our parents. And if they're being painful to us instead of loving, there's this part of us that feels very hurt by that. It's very painful, but there's that part of us is going to try and win the parent's love, but never be able to, because that's just part of who that parent is. So it becomes this sort of broken record. It becomes this hook, this infinite loop, where as an adult, we get drawn to somebody with that same negative trait who then becomes a stand-in for our parent, and we try and win that person's love, who also won't give it to us because, unfortunately, they're like our parent was, and they treat us in the same painful way. And it's not, and just knowing that is not sufficient to change it. So this person, who gave me the question, if you listen to my answer, you might think, okay, and this is the same thing I thought when I first found out what my pattern was. Like, all right, well, now that I'm making all the connections, like, oh, okay, so I'm attracted to this kind of these wrong men, who's she didn't describe the details. She just called him a jerk or jerks. So I'm guessing they're jerks in a very particular sort of way, that all in the same way with each other, or maybe a couple ways, because we can be attracted to more than one negative trait. It's usually 1, 2, or 3 at the most. The tendency is to go, okay, I get it now. My dad or my mom had these certain negative traits. I'm attracted to people with the same negative traits. So I'm just going to like really be on the lookout to see if some new person I'm dating has that negative trait, and then I'll make sure to avoid that person, right? Now, it is possible to do that, to spot it right away and avoid them. But unfortunately, we're still attracted to that kind of person. So the next person will also have that negative trait, and the next one will too. I had somebody who contacted me, and she goes, I have this free mini course called The 3 Secrets to Attracting Amazing Love, where I go into depth about all this stuff, about these 3 blocks. And she said, I read your mini course. It made great sense. I really figured out what my pattern was. But for the past year, my love life has been the following. I'll meet some guy, and I'll be really excited about him, very attracted to him. And then we'll have a date. And the first date, I'll recognize that, he's one of those guys, right? He has that negative trait. So I'll cut it off immediately. Won't see him again. Some time will go by. I'll meet another guy that I get excited about. We'll go on a first date, and they go, oh, no, he's another one of those guys. Cut it off immediately again. And she said, I spent the whole year doing that. I've never been able to get past that. So the problem is that understanding the pattern is enough to help avoid getting involved with those people, but it doesn't change who you're attracted to and who you attract. So again, we need to go back and heal the original wounds that came from being treated by that, the experience we had from the negative trait with that parent, right? So they had this negative trait that they acted out on us, and it caused all these painful experiences as a child. And we need to heal some representative examples of that. though in a particular way. So even if you know EFT, which again I recommend is the quickest way to do this, there's a particular way we need to do this that includes an important empowerment piece and stuff like that, that addresses sort of the relational dynamic between the parent and the child to really break free of this negative attraction pattern. The cool thing is that it's very doable. You need to do it in order to change the whole course of your love life. But the good news is that it's very doable and it doesn't take that long. And it's incredibly relief. It's such an incredible relief when you do break out of these negative attraction patterns. Because all of a sudden, see, before we do that, it feels like the whole world is filled with these people. Like I'll have women say, you know, where are all the good guys? All I meet are these bad guys, these jerks, as this woman said. You know, are there any good guys in the world? And the truth is there's just as many good guys as there are bad guys. There's just as many good women as there are bad women, right? Negative trait women. But as long as we have this powerful subconscious negative attraction pattern, the negative people are the ones we're going to be drawn to, and they're the only ones we're going to even perceive, really. And the good ones will be around us too, and we just don't even see them. Or if we see them, we're just not attracted to them, right? That's one of the sad things, is if they don't have the negative trait, we just don't find them sexy. So sometimes, you know, you'll even meet somebody that you really like as a person. You'll think, wow, this is an amazing guy, or this is an amazing woman. And I wish I was attracted to him, but for some reason I'm just not, you know, and I can't make myself be attracted to him. But it's really a shame, because like they would be, this is such a great person, you know. This is the reason why. So it takes healing those original wounds that came from that negative trait to stop being attracted to those people. And then all of a sudden the world becomes full of all these great people, which is, it's like kind of mind blowing. It's like, God, where they all come from, you know? But in actuality, they were there all along. All right. So let's see, next question. All right, so this one says, how can I find and attract and connect to my soulmate with my present situation? I'm a senior, 76 years old, a wounded healer, financially independent, a widow, developing my skills in marketing and public speaking, as I have a book ready to be printed with a second one of the works with publishing companies. This is time consuming. I would love to find a soulmate, not live together permanently. I'm not quite sure what that means. However, spend time in my second home on an island off the grid in a tropical paradise, feminine energy, or in beautiful British Columbia in masculine energy several weeks or months a year. I'm a world traveler who loves nature, biking, and hiking. Now, this is a woman who sent me the question. So I'm a little confused by some of the wording, but the basic idea here is this person is saying that she, on the one hand, wants to find her soulmate and connect. So there's different pieces to it. 76, not a problem. There's a very common myth or misconception that a lot of women that age have, that they're too old, but that is absolutely not the case. I actually have another video called Am I Too Old to Find Love, where I talk about and sort of bust that myth. My mother found her soulmate at 71, as a nice counterexample. But I talk about it. I even have a tapping script in there. So I don't want to spend too much time right now. Check out that video if you're, feel like you might be too old to find love. You're not too old to find love. This person seems to have some really cool vision about what she's looking for and what she wants to do with this partner, which is really exciting. She also seems to be saying that she's really busy and is expressing doubts about having time to do what she needs to do to find a partner. All right, so here's the answer. I find that people with big visions, if they're willing to really go for them, tend to do better than people with more modest ambitions. Like lots of times I'll hear people say, I just want to find someone who will love me. And that seems like, okay, it's like, well, sure, of course, I want to find someone who loves me. But if that's all you're saying, if that's your whole vision, I want to be with someone who loves me, then what happens if you find somebody who loves you, but is incompatible with you in many major ways? It's like, That's not a very rich vision. People who say that tend to come from a place of, feeling pretty discouraged, actually. It's like, I just want to find somebody who will love me, who will, love me for who I am. It's like, is that too much to ask, right? That's all I want. You actually tend to do better, in my experience, if you want a lot more than that. Yeah, I want someone who loves me, but I also want this, and this. I want a lot of things. I have this big vision. When you have a big vision, it's much easier to use something called the law of attraction to bring it to you. So let me give you an example of this. Before I met my wife-to-be, or before I met, my wife-to-be, I wrote down a list of all the things I was looking for in a partner. I went back and I counted up all the things I was looking for, and I had 35 items on my list, a lot. Unknown to me, my wife-to-be had also done that, and she had a list of 32 items on her list, right? So we both had these big, long lists. We didn't have like 5 major things I'm looking for in a partner, or even 10. 35, 32. After we started dating, we compared lists, and we discovered very quickly that she matched 34 and a half, well, actually now 35 out of 35 items on my list, and I matched 31 and a half out of 32 of her items. So, this was amazing for both of us, but it wouldn't have happened if we didn't have these goals, these aspirations of, I want all these things. This is what I'm really looking for. I have this big vision. So, like I say, I encourage people to have a big vision, right? Don't settle. Don't have a small goal. I just want somebody nice who loves me. It's like, it's not specific enough to actually help you find your partner. So I encourage you to have big goals. Now, here's the thing. When people say that they feel like they're too busy to date, to look for a partner, stuff like that, they will tend to have a list of things that they can point to that explains their business. Like I'll say, you're too busy. What is it you're doing? And they'll give me this big, long list of things. And I go, see, look at all these things I'm doing. I'm too busy. And I said, but you do want to find a partner. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I do want to find a partner. But it's so hard to find the time. I just look at all these things I'm doing. And so what I say to somebody in that situation is, look what you're prioritizing. If you have overfilled your life with all these activities to the exclusion of having any time available to try and, meet people and date and things like that, so that you're actually available for a relationship, then there's a part of you that's not really available for a relationship, not just time-wise, but emotionally. Because otherwise you would not overfill your time like that, right? Every single thing on your list are things you chose to do. And you can re-examine each choice. How important is this to me, really? Is this thing more important to me than finding the love of my life, right? Now, I'm not saying you have a book being published or working on a second book. I'm not saying you should give up writing your books, of course. That's going to be a big, important thing to you. But you might want to re-examine everything else on your list. And even the book thing, you can look a little bit at the pacing. Like, how many hours a day do you have to do that? Can you reserve some free time for dating? If you feel some discomfort at the idea of carving out some time to keep yourself available, then you have to start looking at, okay, where is this discomfort coming from? And typically where our discomfort to make time available in our schedule, where that comes from tends to be things that we're afraid of. Like, there's a part of us that really wants, to meet the love of our life and be with that person. And I have these grand visions like this person does, but there might be a part of us that's really scared of doing it too. And that scared part is going to get busy, right? There's a lot of ways to respond to our internal fear, and we all tend to try and suppress it. And one thing that helps is busyness, right? Well, I'm going to take on all these different activities. So let's see. I have a response. It says, don't you think that having these huge standards are kind of ridiculous? Doesn't it make finding a special person much harder? So actually, I don't think so. I encourage my clients to make big, long lists. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to hold out for getting every single thing on that list, right? But I find, well, the law of attraction is related to this idea of being really clear about what you're looking for. Okay, in fact, my list of 35 items evolved over time. So I had my original list, and then I would get in a relationship with somebody. And once that relationship was over, I'd re-examine my list and realize that I had left out some important things, right? That were either missing in that relationship, or I needed to add something that addressed some negative aspect of that relationship, right? So my list actually grew over time. It didn't get shorter. Now, there's certainly the idea of gotta haves versus nice to haves, right? So the idea of a gotta have is I'm putting something on my list that I gotta have that in order for the relationship to work. So for instance, a gotta have might be the person I want to be with wants to have children because I am totally committed to having children. That's a super important thing to me. And if this person I meet who's amazing otherwise doesn't want to have kids, then that's a serious mismatch. So that's a gotta have. Or for me, being with somebody who's very intelligent was a gotta have because I love talking about interesting things with my partner. And therefore, I need that, right? That's one of my gotta haves. But then there's certain things that are not necessarily a gotta have. But the list of things I was looking for was pretty long. Okay. So clarification, this person continues to write, I guess I'm saying things like, I want a rich guy, or a man says he wants a model, that kind of stuff. That's really good. So when we're looking for or wanting in a partner, what we really want to be putting on our list is characteristics of the person, not their surroundings. Now, somebody who isn't very in touch with themselves on a deeper level as to what they're really wanting in a partner might get stuck on these superficial things like I want a rich guy or I want a model, right? People who focus on these very superficial kinds of things like that tend to feel pretty dissatisfied in the results. We want to look for is what kind of traits, am I looking for in a partner, whether the person is rich or poor, beautiful or not so beautiful or whatever. What am I looking for in the traits and qualities of the person? And what I do recommend is to not get overly specific about what kind of job they have, what their appearance is, and things like that, because that is not what is essential and crucial. So for instance, when I was, on my list is I wanted to find her attractive, but I didn't say she should be blonde or brunette or redhead or tall or short or whatever. It was sufficient for me to say, one item on my list, I find her attractive. Sure, nothing wrong with that. But once I find her attractive, then that part is taken care of. It's like, okay, good. It's a necessary, gotta have, but not sufficient. It's not all I need, right? And I would rather meet a woman that I find attractive who's not a model, and she has everything else than a woman who's a model but doesn't have all the personal characteristics I'm looking for. So, okay. So this fellow just wrote, I see names. I'm not gonna mention names, online just in case the person doesn't want that. I actually have a video about creating a partner vision where I go into a lot more detail about how to create a partner vision. So again, this call is limited. So I'm going to just direct you to do it. Just look for how to create a partner vision, a soulmate partner vision, I think is the title of the video. I go into lots of detail about how, what kinds of things you should put in there. And also it's really important not to put don't wants in your vision. So there's a way to turn it around to turn a don't want into a want. But anyway, I would recommend you go there. All right, let's see. So next question that I have here. Okay, so this person wrote, I am a woman from Hungary. I have followed your videos for several years. I was a single person for 10 years and I wanted to learn about romantic partnerships. 3 months ago, I found someone. We live together and are very happy. Yay, congratulations. My age is 63 and his is 61. All right, cool. So there's a good example, not too old. You're never too old. You helped me a lot with keeping spirits on. I remember your story about your mother who found love above 80. Actually, she found love above 70. She was 71. My only problem is that I have no orgasm. Earlier, I did have with partners and on my own as well. What do you recommend to me? Okay, so this is a little challenging because there could be so many different factors here, and this is not one of my bigger areas of expertise, the female orgasm. One of the questions I would have is, can you still have them on your own? And is it the case you can't have it? Let's see. Wait, so my only problem is I have no orgasm. So okay, I'm going to try and answer in two cases. So there's the case of you can still do it by yourself, but not with your partner. And then there's the case where you can't do it at all with a partner or by yourself, right? If you can do it by yourself, but not with a partner, then what that usually means is that there's a part of you that is scared to let yourself be fully vulnerable with your partner. Even though I don't know what's happened at this point where you're 63, maybe that you had some really painful experiences in the past, that even though you're now with somebody that feels wonderful and you're really happy with this person, when we've had a lot of past really painful experiences, there's a part of us that stays afraid of that happening again. Even if there's a part of us that knows that it's not likely to happen with this new partner because he's so wonderful, there can still be a part of you that's scared that maybe it could happen still. And that can kind of cause you to kind of have a bit of a guard up around your heart. And for a woman, it's my understanding that orgasm comes from surrendering, from like really opening yourself up, being vulnerable, things like that. And if the guard's up, then it's going to be hard to do that. And that might really interfere with your ability to have an orgasm. If you cannot have an orgasm either way, by yourself or with a partner, then this may be medical, right? It may be a lack of the right hormones. You might need hormone replacement therapy, in menopause, so that might be an issue, something to look into. Or my original answer could interfere with even having an orgasm by yourself. So I wish if you were online on this call, I could ask you the question, you can respond to me. Because the interesting thing would be, before you met him, you've been with him for 3 months now. How about 4 months ago, were you able to have an orgasm then by yourself? Like if you were able to have an orgasm then by yourself and now cannot have an orgasm by either with him or alone, then that would mean it's connected to being in a relationship, which would mean that there's something you're really afraid of that's blocking your ability to have orgasms. If prior to meeting him, you were no longer able to have orgasms by yourself, then that would be more likely to be medical. But even there, sometimes even having an orgasm by yourself, you have to kind of fantasize about being with somebody, and fears of being close can interfere even with that, even when we're trying to have an orgasm by ourselves. So I'd have to talk with you a bit more to find out more clearly what your situation is. But so it's either going to be fears or medical. If it's fears, you're going to want to go back and address them. So if you had painful experiences, you want to, in past relationships, you want to heal them, even though they're long past and it's over and all that. And you think it's behind you. If you haven't really moved all the way through those feelings and released them all, it can leave you gun shy, even if it was 10 years ago. So, lots of times we have to clear out baggage from a past relationship to make ourselves fully open and available to our current relationship. All right. Okay. So let me just remove this spam. There we go. Next question, last question. All right, my question is, when I finally meet someone who seems to be the perfect match for me, how do I keep from, quote, waiting for the other shoe to drop? Since in the past, fundamental incompatibilities have always arisen. All right, so this is a good example of what I was talking about just in the prior question, right? Is that we become gun shy, we become fearful, and we have certain kinds of negative experiences in our relationships in the past. We bring the fear of that happening again forward into our new relationship. Even if we meet somebody great, even if we meet, like this person said, when I meet someone who seems to be a perfect match, how do I keep from waiting for the other shoe to drop? Waiting for the other shoe to drop is what I was talking about, where we have these leftover fears from what happened to us in our last relationship or last few relationships or whatever. The solution is we need to heal what happened to us, right? Otherwise, it's left over from our original experience. So I'll just give you an example of it. Let's say I think I may give this example already, but let's say we got cheated on in our last relationship. We were together with this person for 10 years, maybe married, whatever it was, and we got cheated on. We found out that our partner was cheating on us for a year or something like that. It was just devastating and, absolutely agonizingly painful. And, we get divorced and break up, and, a couple of years have gone by and we think we're past it. There's a part of us that's still going to be scared of it happening again, as much as we're going to try and really guard against and all this stuff. Or it can be any kind of thing that happened that was just painful. And we get left with this feeling of fear that something like that could happen again. The way we address that so we don't go into our next relationship with that fear is we have to clear out the pain of it happening originally. Again, EFT is the fastest way to do it, but it doesn't have to be an EFT. What we have to do is we have to go back and relive it and express and release all those feelings, right? And unfortunately, in this society, in the United States society, we tend to be very anti-emotions. So the recommendations that most people receive are all recommendations around avoiding our feelings. Like if something really bad happens, the recommendations often will, if you keep busy, then you'll manage things better, Like my spouse died, so, try and keep busy, that'll help. It's like, well, no, actually keeping busy is just avoiding the emotions, which means they just stay inside of us. They might retreat from our conscious awareness, but they're still inside of us. The way to think about emotions, the analogy I like to share with my clients is that you can think of our emotional reaction to an event as like a tank of water. So let's say we get cheated on, for instance. That might be a fairly big tank of water of a bunch of emotions, deep hurt, feelings of betrayal, anger, shame. Lots of times when we get cheated on, we think, oh, there must have been something wrong with me. I wasn't good enough for my partner, something like that. So there's a bunch of feelings, but it's not infinite, right? The tank of water might be a little tank, a medium tank. It could be a big tank, but it's a finite tank. And the way that you heal from some kind of painful experience is you express and get out all the feelings in that tank. So if we're feeling sad, for instance, you cry. Crying is not the sadness. Crying is the expression of the sadness, which drains the tank. Like crying is like opening the spigot and the tank, the water in the tank is coming out. So if you cry long enough, eventually it drains dry. Now, the only complication with that is I'll say that to people and they'll go, oh man, I cried for hours last night and at the end of it, I felt worse instead of better. It's like, well, it depends on what you're doing while you're crying, because what you want to do is focus on the pure feelings, like the sadness of being cheated on and all these painful images of your partner being with the other person. And you want to kind of just focus on the pure hurt and sadness and cry it out. But what some people do is as they're feeling hurt and sadness, they start saying all these negative things to themselves. That just makes us feel worse. Instead of getting all the feelings out, we're adding more feelings in while we're crying. It's like, we'll start saying things like, oh, I must have been this, worthless, terrible partner, and I'm not good enough. And, I can't believe that, he would do something like that to me, and must mean something terrible about me. And we'll start saying all this negative self-talk that just sort of feeds into it, and it just adds and adds and adds. And then by the end of it, I feel worse than before. If you just cry and let it out, at the end of a good bout of crying, you feel like you can really feel this sense of, I let a good chunk of this this tank of water out, and I feel more spacious inside. I feel lighter. I feel freer. Right. Now, the cool thing about EFT is you can add EFT to the crying. So you tap while you're crying, and it speeds it up dramatically. And it also makes it gentler. So while I'm crying, it's not as painful. And it's like draining the tank 5 times faster than just simply crying. And it's also easier to not start doing all that negative self-talk that tends to add more junk in there, right? So it helps keep it cleaner, so we just get it all out. So sometimes we really do, in order to be fully available to a new relationship, we need to clear out the past ones. This is not a fun process, but if we really want to be clear and not have baggage, we pretty much have to do that. So let's see, because there's another follow-up question here by the same guy. And he says, I'm 57 and I kind of feel like I'm behind the 8 ball. I mean, I keep feeling like my life is over. I know it's not healthy to think this way. Is there a tapping phrase to help me? So first of all, I'd ask you, what makes you feel like your life is over? I mean, you can just tap on the very thing you said, right? Even though I feel like my life is over. You can certainly start with that. So you say, even though I feel like my life is over, I deeply and profoundly love and accept myself anyway. I like adding anyway when it's kind of a negative belief about ourselves. I like adding anyway in. It just sort of helps counteract this negative feeling about ourselves. Even though I feel like my life is over, I deeply and profoundly love and accept myself anyway. So you do that 3 times. And you start tapping on, I feel like my life is over. I feel like my life is over. And then after a while, what will happen is the deeper underlying reasons why we feel like our life is over will start to come up. And then you change the wording to match what you're experiencing inside. Okay. I actually have a new video that I haven't published yet because I'm still editing it and things like that. It's an advanced EFT technique called flow of consciousness tapping. I'll be publishing that video next week or 2, which will help you understand more the process that I'm talking about. But the quick version is you just tap on every thought and feeling that comes up. Let's see, this man says, the fact that I'm not married yet, I guess. So I remember when I turned 40, on my 40th birthday, I was in a state of absolute shock. Because I always in my 20s, I didn't want to get married yet because I felt like I'm still developing as a person and I'm not ready to settle down that young. And, 20s is the period of exploration and learning and growth and all that stuff. But I figured, okay, by the time I'm 30, I'm ready to get married, right? From 30 forward, I'm ready to get married. And I imagined that in my 30s, I would meet my wife-to-be and we'd get married. And then I remember turning 40 and not only had I not met my wife-to-be, I didn't even have a girlfriend on my 40th birthday. And I was absolutely stunned to imagine that here I am 40 and I'm not even close to getting married. It was shocking. I was absolutely shocked. And I felt despairing for a while. And I just allowed myself to feel that and tap on it. And by not fighting on it, oh, he just wrote same thing for me. Yeah. By not fighting the feeling and letting myself go through it. So the thing is, we often, like I say, try to avoid our feelings, fight them, argue with them, suppress them, work against them. What we want to do is go with them, which doesn't mean I'm just going to have a pity party, but it means that temporarily, I'm just going to let myself feel the despair. I'm going to let myself feel like I'm behind the 8 ball and my life is over. Tapping will help me move through that feeling faster. And as I move through it, I will encounter the next feeling. And then I just let myself feel, experience, and express that feeling. And if I let myself go through that one, I'll encounter the next one. And it'll just keep evolving this organic, natural way until I come out the other end. And for me, when I came out the other end, where I came out to is this feeling of determination. It's like, damn it, I am going to figure out what's in the way for me from meeting my soulmate. Right? I am going to identify the blocks. I'm going to get whatever help I need to identify these blocks, clear them out so I can do it. I am damn determined. I'm going to do whatever it takes. So that's what happened for me. at that point of temporary despair when I turned 40, where I was just, like I said, absolutely shocked, stunned, this was incredulous, all that. And that feeling returned sometimes. And again, I would just let myself go through it. By going through it, I got through it faster than resisting it. There's an expression called, what you resist persists. So by resisting the feelings of despair and feeling like life is over, actually just keeps you locked in that feeling, keeps it inside. Because you're when you do that, when you resist it, you're actually just kind of holding it in, keeping it inside, suppressing it, holding it. So let yourself get into it. So you're not married, life sucks, it feels like life is over. Just get into those feelings, tapping, make it easier, help you get through them faster, and just go through it. And you'll find is after that, instead of feeling despair, you might feel angry. It's like, damn, this, and just let yourself yell. It's like I'm mad at the universe. Why is it so hard? Why is it taking so long? Well, you're tapping. It's like, oh, this sucks. I hate it. I'm so pissed. Pissed at God. Pissed at whatever. I'm pissed at whatever, And so you just go through being angry. And then after that, you might feel fear. Like, what if I never meet somebody? What if, whatever the feelings are, it won't necessarily be in that order. Whatever is right for you. So this man says, thank you. You're very welcome. Listen, we want to go through our feelings. It's easy to be scared of them, but I'll tell you this, resisting our feelings makes them feel more painful. When you let yourself go through them, you sort of surrender into them and go through them, they actually feel a lot less painful. Our resistance to feeling what we're feeling makes those feelings more painful because we're kind of being forced to feel them against our resistance. That tension intensifies the feeling, makes it harder, makes the experience feel like I said, I keep saying it, more painful. When I learned to stop resisting it, it became a lot less painful for me. I was like, wow, kind of shocking, when I stopped resisting. It's like crying instead of feeling like this really painful thing actually started to feel good. It's like, oh, okay, it feels like this nice release now. It just feels good to cry. I welcome those movies that get you crying. It's like those tearjerker movies. Like, oh, good, get to release some more sadness. It's always things always build up, and we have to kind of like keep letting out. It's similar to exercising, really. It's not like you exercise once and it's all over. You don't cry once and you're done. So, anyway, these are all the questions I have. I apologize for having to switch to a new YouTube Live, but for some bizarre reason, the YouTube Live that I set up last week for tonight, the button to go live was grayed out. There was nothing to click on. In fact, it said that it was discontinued. It was like discontinued. I don't know what's going on with this. So it's been frustrating. It's very ironic because I actually have a master's degree in computer science. That was my prior career before, well, actually in parallel with doing this work. I don't do the computer stuff anymore, but I'm still a pretty tech savvy guy. And I've had trouble with YouTube Live a few times now where the button wasn't working for me. So frustrating, but anyway, we got to be live now. There's another person said, thank you. You're very welcome. Any final questions before we sign off for the people who are with me live? I'll give you just 1 minute. Oh, do I do private coaching is the question. Yes, thank you for asking that question. Yes, I do. My website is singletosoulmate.me, not .com, .me, singletosoulmate.me. I offer private one-on-one coaching. I also have a product I mentioned at the beginning called the Single to Soulmate Breakthrough Program, which is designed to help identify and heal and release those 3 key blocks. The 3 key blocks are being powerfully, subconsciously attracted to the wrong people. I spent a lot of time talking about that one in this call. The second key block, which I didn't mention too much directly, though indirectly I did, is around having fears and limiting beliefs that interfere with us being with our ideal partner. So that feeling of not being good enough for our soulmate, that'd be that second block, an example of the second block. Having fears around intimacy is also the example of the second block. So we've been talking about the second block. I just didn't name it directly. And the third one is the law of attraction thing, which I also mentioned. So as you can see, these 3 blocks are very universal. Now, the one thing it does not address very much is clearing out past relationship stuff. But it does address those 3 key blocks, and it has all of these EFT-based healing processes to heal them once you've identified them. And there's methods in the program to help you identify them for yourself. So I have that product. I also have my Self-Love to Soulmate product to help build up our self-love, self-appreciation, feelings of self-worth and self-esteem. That's a really nice product. And I also have, yes, I'm going to respond to that in a second. I also have a product called Fearless Dating, which is a very narrow, inexpensive little product to help when you're out in the dating world, to help address our universal fear of rejection when dating. So that's really cool. Now, this one woman says, we are all good enough. I absolutely agree with you. We are all good enough. And lots of times there's a part of us, see, we all have 2 sides to us. We have our conscious, evolved, enlightened, aware side of us. And we also have our wounded inner child side of us, that comes from our childhood experiences. Our conscious, evolved side recognizes the truth that, yes, we are all good enough. Absolutely, 100%. And then there's this sort of inner child wounded side of us that goes, I'm not really feeling very good enough at all, right? And so we can have both feelings at the same time. This our evolved side that goes, yeah, of course I'm good enough. There's other side that goes, actually, I don't feel so good after all. So it's the healing. We have to help the inner child part of us kind of come together with the enlightened part of us. Here's another question. How do you know if you are capable of deep love, if your self-love is not so strong? Yes, that's a great question. So I spent a lot of time early in the call talking about the causes for us to not have very good self-love, from various negative experiences I already mentioned. And yes, the outcome, if we don't have very good self-love, now we don't need perfect self-love, we just need good enough self-love, right? Pretty good self-love is all that you really need. It doesn't have to be great self-love. If you have great self-love, that's amazing. Very few people like that. But if you're one of them, you're probably not on this call with us. But if you have pretty good self-love, that's really sufficient. But if that's an area of struggle, then being capable of deep love, it's not so much that we're not capable of deep love, is that we have a really hard time receiving it. We may have a hard time with loving, because part of our wounding that affected our own self-love may also make us feel unsafe in relationships, which means we're going to have a guard up. And if we have a guard up, it's going to be hard to be very open-hearted and loving, right? Because we might be kind of holding back. It's going to be definitely hard to receive love, because if we don't feel very safe, self-loving, then it's hard to receive the love of another person. So the answer, though, is that we can address that. We can build up our self-love by healing the wounds that negatively impacted our self-love on the one hand, like I do one-on-one with my clients, or in that Single to Soulmate Breakthrough Program product. Both those ways, those are both ways that you can heal the original wounds that negatively impacted your self-love. And by doing that, you start to feel a lot more self-loving. And as well, you can do some directly positive processes to build up self-love. And I have that other product for that. That was also actually a very inexpensive one. Those other 2 products I created years later to kind of supplement the Breakthrough Program product, because I realized that some people need a little extra help. As well as, like I say, working one-on-one with my clients, which I do a lot. Let's see, one person said hi back. If you have a question, I'd be very happy to answer it. Let's see, the person said, how do you know if you're capable of deep love, if your self-love is not so strong? She said yes in response to my answer to his question. So yes, so it's good to recognize that not having much good self-love is can be, it makes things harder. But the good news, and so having that awareness is really helpful, because then it makes you realize that, oh, there's something I can do about that. If you're not aware of that, you see, you mean that he says, I agree. Yes, good. But the cool thing is, if you have that self-awareness, I mean, some people, when they have that awareness, that they start beating themselves up. It's like, oh no, I'm a loser because I don't love myself. We don't want to do that. We want to have compassion. We want to recognize that if I don't have good self-love, that is not my fault. It's a direct result of the experiences I had as a little kid, 0 to 7 years old. It all happens in those first 7 years. So that's none of our faults. That was just what happened to us as a little kid. But the cool thing is that you can heal this stuff. It's addressable so that you can build up your self-love and feel much better about yourself, to feel much more confident as a person, not kind of insecure anymore, things like that. We can really turn this around. Is there a common reason for feeling a fear of intimacy? I actually mentioned that earlier in the call, so I'll give you the quicker version. You can listen to the recording to hear my longer answer to that question. But the reason for a fear of intimacy is painful experiences growing up, right? Our first experience with intimacy is intimacy with our parents, right? And our siblings, actually. So in our family of origin is where we have our initial close relationships. And if we have a lot of painful experiences in these close relationships, that's going to create a fear of intimacy, because this is where we learn what it's like to be close, right? And if what it's like to be close is this really wonderful, loving experience, then when we're an adult, we're not going to have a fear of intimacy. We're going to be looking forward to intimacy. But if we had a lot of painful experiences growing up, then intimacy is going to feel scary and threatening, right? And then we get into this weird mixed place of, I long for intimacy, scared of intimacy. I long for intimacy, I'm scared of intimacy, So it all comes back to healing the experiences that kind of hurt us. Once you heal, let's say you had a particular kind of painful experience over and over and over again. You only have to heal a few representative memories of it. You don't have to spend years healing every single time it happened to you, at least with EFT. I find that healing 3 or 4 representative memories is all it takes. Because usually these painful experiences we have as a child happen like hundreds of times, right? Because that parent or sibling who's doing this painful thing to you, that's who they are. So they're going to do it over and over again, right? But all you have to do is heal a few representative examples, and that takes care of it. And then we stop being afraid of that. Once the reason why we're afraid of it is because we're still wounded from it happening originally. And when we're wounded from something happening, we become very gun shy, whether it happened in a recent adult relationship, like getting cheated on, or if it happened when we were 5 years old. As long as it stays unhealed, we remain gun shy. We remain scared of it happening again. But interestingly, when you heal it, you stop being afraid of it because it's over. It's been healed. It's truly done and resolved, and that chapter is closed. Otherwise, it's this kind of festering wound that never healed. And that's why we're afraid of it, because we still haven't recovered from the original one. But when you heal it, it's over, and you stop being afraid of it. Not only do you stop being afraid of it, you're much less likely to experience it again, because it's that very unhealed wound that tends to draw us to experience that kind of thing again. All right. Any other questions before we sign off here? Okay. So this person says, what if your parents died before you were able to get the resolution to the situation and made you feel bad about self-love? So I'm not sure, are you saying that they died when you were a child or died when you were an adult? So you can just answer that one question, because the answer is very different depending on which two it is. So I'm just going to wait for you to go ahead, and there's a little delay between what I say and when you guys hear me say it. So I just want to give this guy a moment to answer it. So just say, as a child or as an adult. So you can keep a really short answer. So did they die when you were still a child, or did they die when you were an adult? Well, okay, I'm just going to answer both ways. If your parents died when you were a child, that's going to be a very painful abandonment, right? Having our parents die when we're still a child is horribly painful. Oh, adult. Well, I'm going to answer both ways anyway, just in case it applies to other people on the call. So if a parent dies when you're a child, that's a horribly painful abandonment. And that can create this huge fear of abandonment when we're an adult, in our adult relationships. This fear of being left, right? Because our parents left us by dying. And again, we need to heal that original trauma. Having a parent die is a trauma. But again, it doesn't take that many sessions, at least with EFT, just a few, to heal that wound of our parents dying. Now, if they Or one parent. Okay. By the way, even if only one parent dies when you're a child, it's still a horribly painful abandonment. You feel left by that parent, and it can create this intense fear of abandonment as an adult. So you heal the child experience. Now, if the parent died when you're an adult, then that's still painful, of course, but it's not something that is impacting your development like it would when you're a child. So it's not really so much of a factor. Doing the healing from your childhood wounds does not involve your parents as they are now, or your parents. It doesn't involve your parents at all in real life. It just involves going back and healing the experiences you had as a child when you were like 5 years old, say. So it really doesn't matter what your parents are or are not doing, or even whether or not they're still alive. The healing is not dependent on that. Interestingly, even if your parents dramatically reformed, so let me give you an example. I had this client whose father was pretty abusive when she was a young child, 0 to 7. Pretty bad, right? Did really bad things. And usually parents, if they are a certain way, stay that way their whole lives, right? They don't change that much. But this person's father, by the time she was an adult, he transformed. He became this super loving father. Amazingly so, dramatically so, and pretty rare. So you would think that, well, wouldn't that take care of it? Now she said, he's now as loving of a father as I could have ever hoped for. He's amazing now. So you would think that wouldn't that heal what happened as a child? Unfortunately, it doesn't. Whether the parent is still the same as they were when you're 5, or if they're now super loving in a way that they were not when you were 5, all that matters is what happened when you were 5. That's when it happened. That's when it impacted you. That's when it hurt your self-esteem, your self-love, or created the fears of intimacy, or whatever it was. That's when the damage was done. And that's where you have to heal it, back on that 5-year-old experience, right? It's really independent of what's going on with your parents now or as an adult. So the fact that a particular parent died when you're an adult and there's no way to work it out with them anymore as a parent isn't really relevant. I mean, it's nice after you do all this healing. Lots of times our relationships with our parents really improve a lot when we do this healing. But it's not necessary. It's not needed for your own healing. It's kind of a cherry on the top. All right. Any other questions? Can you just give it one more minute again? Take a drink of water while I'm waiting. So far, no. All right, so I'm going to give you a bit of my closing spiel. I have 2 thumbs up likes on this call already. Thank you so much. If you do, actually, that reminds me, if you did like this, Ask Me Anything live call, YouTube live call, it would be really cool if you let me know by clicking on the like thing. This man said, thanks again. You're very welcome. I'm glad this was helpful. So anyway, like I said, if you guys found this helpful, it would help me if you let me know by pressing the like thumbs up thing. I mentioned this briefly. I have a free mini course called The 3 Secrets to Attracting Amazing Love. It's, like I said, it's free. You just sign up for it. And it really goes into depth about these 3 blocks and helps you understand what it takes to address all this stuff. I keep saying heal the wounds, but it'll give you a better sense. And plus, I have a lot of helpful material beyond the mini courses. Like the mini course is 7 daily emails, and then after that, there's a bunch of stuff to help you with your love life. So I encourage you to sign up for that. It's all free. Unsubscribe anytime, And I already mentioned I have those products. I help people one-on-one, and I'd be very happy to help you, discover, uncover, heal your blocks. It doesn't take that long, so that you can dramatically transform your love life from one where things are painful or just dissatisfying to being able to be with your soulmate with a really ambitious list of all the things you're looking for, right? You can have all that. And it's such an incredible feeling to be with your soulmate. When I met Laura, my wife, she's from Argentina. Her name is spelled Laura, but in Spanish it's pronounced Laura. It was incredible. We knew by the third date that we wanted to get married. And, I decided to propose to her. Well, I tried to be reasonable. I tried to hold off. So I waited 6 whole weeks to propose to her, believe it or not. And we were married 9 months after we first started dating. And we've been really happy and grateful to have found each other, though it was not an accident, because we used the law of attraction to help us find each other. And we've been, enjoying our lives together ever since. And that is possible for you too. Regardless of how long you've been looking, regardless of how many painful, bad relationships you've had, there's explanations as to why you've been having the bad experiences up till now. And there's the right healing you can do so you stop having those kind of bad experiences for the rest of your life so that you can be with your ideal partner, with your soulmate. That is possible for you. It's possible for everybody. All right. So thanks everybody for being with me, and I'll be doing these on a regular basis, and I'll see you on the next call. Bye, everybody.